Ben ritrovati martedì mattina sul floor del New York Stock Exchange, in questo momento indici vicinissimi alla parità, sicuramente si guarda quest'oggi all'Europa, ma ne parliamo con il mio ospite qui sul floor, come vedete è Kenneth Polcari che è direzione delle operazioni sul floor per O'Neil Securities. Kenny, buongiorno.
Buongiorno, come va?
Benissimo, tu come stai, Kenny?
Molto bene, grazie.
So Kenny, it's all about Europe again today, right? I
Yes,
mean,
it is.
even if we are in Wall Street, we are really following what is going on there, and we see an impact. You know, the dollar is really on the run.
Right. We see it's all about as the hours count down to ultimately what's going to happen to Greece, right? I think for the most part, the truth is, I think markets are actually expecting the worst, quite honestly. But that being said, I think what you might find if that happens, you might find a quick sell-off. I think there'll be some nervousness, but then I think the buyers will come in and then they'll actually buy the markets across the board, because I think people the finality of it, right? There'll be no more question. It'll be done. Maybe they're out. They'll go on their own. It'll be what it'll be for Greece. But I think the rest of Europe and then the rest of the markets will kind of stabilize. I think there's got to be a definitive answer one way or the other.
And in the meantime, the ECB is still promising support, is increasing basically the support, and we saw the movement of the euro today, the euro dollar.
Right.
So how is the market reacting here? I mean, is still, still liquidity pumping and still probably support
Right.
also for here.
Right, and yesterday we saw, you weren't here yesterday, but yesterday we actually marched to new highs again on both the S&P and the Dow. There were some dovish comments yesterday out of Fed President Evans. Now, he was in Europe when he was speaking, but he was talking about the need to keep rates low. I think, especially right now, it's important for the Fed, for the ECB, even for Asian banks to talk about stimulus and economic stimulus and continuing support in light of what's going on in Greece. I think everyone's a little bit on edge about what it means, and so therefore, if they continue with the stimulus, then they'll hopefully protect the markets, right? Certainly the ECB, right. Certainly the ECB came out again last night and talked about ramping up their purchases over the next 2 months because they're getting ready, typically in Europe, like in a lot of places, late summer. Things tend to get quiet and die down, and so therefore they don't want to run into any potholes, so they're going to actually ramp up the support. So that's positive, right? Certainly here in this country, I think, other than today's very strong housing report, once again, that's an outlier. When you look at all the other reports have continued to be negative, and so therefore, June is off the table. I really think August is off the table. I think investors in this country expect that any rate rise at all in 2015 is not going to happen until the end of the year. And even there are plenty of people now even questioning whether it happens at all in 2015. And so therefore we see the market marching into highs. Why wouldn't it? It's certainly not going to back off on that news because the Fed continues to support. So it's a positive environment.
We have a big speech coming out this week. Janet Yellen is speaking on Friday. Do you expect any news? Do you expect any confirmation of what you just said?
Yeah, listen, tomorrow they get the release of the FOMC minutes. That's going to be number one. So I don't expect anyone's going to see anything different. I think she's going to continue talking about the importance of the data points and the importance of the Fed watching for the clues, right, in every month with every macro data report. And I think that makes perfect sense. But I don't think Janet Yellen is going to say anything on Friday that's going to change the psyche or the mindset that not only investors are in or that the Fed is in, right? I think the Fed is in a very, very tough spot. I think central banks around the world are in a little bit over their heads, and, extricating ourselves out of this issue is going to take some finesse, and it's going to take a long time to get out. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to have to be slow, because the last thing any of the central banks want to do is see a market meltdown from investors. And so I think it's going to be a very, very long process getting out.
And so you were mentioning records. We had records for 3 days in a row.
Right.
Even though they are a small step, but they're still a small step high.
But
So where are we moving this week? Where are we going?
Well, listen, I think, once again, I think we're going to kind of hit our head here at the 2130 level, which is where we tested yesterday, closed just under it. This morning, we're backing off of that a little bit. The market's, slightly positive, but not breaking that record yet. Yeah, the news this morning was great. The housing numbers, the building permits, they were much, much stronger than expected. And so is that a one-off, or is that now going to be the trend? Well, you're not going to really know till you see what next month's number is, right? What the read is the trend now all of a sudden changing? So I think, the market's kind of going to churn here for a little bit. Look, we're trading at 18 times, which is well ahead of the 15 and a half or 16 times, what the average is. And so therefore, is the market a little bit pricey? Sure. But I think
Even Janet Yellen said that.
even Janet Yellen said it. Not only did she say it, but it was mimicked by a number of other people around, both Fed presidents as well as Europeans, talking about not only European market being overvalued or fairly valued, overvalued, but even the U.S. market. And so therefore, I think it's going to hold it in check. But that being said, where else are investors going to go, right? And so therefore, if they're worried about the bond market, they're either going to hold money just in cash or they're going to start to plow it into equities. And so I think, in the end, I think the equity market is okay.
It's still the only alternatives, basically. I mean, it's been for a very long time, and it
That's
still is.
And so therein lies the dilemma, right? And that lies the problem. And so I think if in fact the economy does start to turn around, and if it shows that it can handle it, then the small rate increases will actually be a positive, right? Because they'll still be historically low. And so therefore I think for the most part investors just have to wrap their head around that and get to believe that and understand it.
Well, Steve, thank you very much, Ken, in the meantime, and have a great day.
Thank you, and you as well.
E grazie a voi per l'attenzione e alla prossima.